What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to tie a big game popper using these big popper heads I have. Not sure the size of them. I believe they're called howitzer poppers. But nice big, throw a lot of water. For this fly, you could use it for a lot of saltwater species, freshwater as well, striper, big bass, pike. Not very hard to tie. Mostly saddle hackles and marabou. But I have a 2-aught hook. I'm not sure if it's the right size hook for these popper heads or not. I've had them for a while. And I've already started my thread and did a base of thread so nothing slips. I'm using Danville 210 in white. I have everything prepped, so we'll get right into it. And I'll try to speed up some of the stuff that repeats so that you don't have to sit through that. But the first material we'll tie in are these saddle hackles. And I have 3 of them, so it'll be 3 on each side. And I'm going to try to make it about the length of the hook. Try to get it with a loose wrap to get them set. And get them manipulated the way you want. Saddle hackles for me is always kind of a pain. They never sit exactly how I want them. But that looks pretty good. See if I can try to keep them in place, work my thread back. Like that. I don't worry too much about how they look. It'll be fine in the water. We'll go ahead and snip our butts out. I have a few of these in my box that I fish for big jacks in the saltwater. If I get a chance to, then I'm also going to try them for striper and pike. I'm sure big bass will come up and hit them as well. I do my best to try to get the tips lined up. It's a little harder for me to try to keep them all level, but I don't fuss about it too much. Once again, try to make them the same length. About like that. And now I'll tighten the thread going forward to keep them in place. That looks pretty good. Once again, we'll cut out the tips. A lot of repetition on this fly, doing the same thing. Wrapping the marabou and the flash. But it's a neat looking fly. Yeah, a lot of movement in the water, a lot of flash. And you can always take the feathers once you have them tied in and work them to how you want. That looks pretty good there. Like I said, I don't fuss too much about it. Just can never really get them perfect. Next, I'm going to take quite a few strands of this flashabou. I believe this is pearl ice. I'm not sure how many strands I have. Just enough to make it pretty flashy. Did not seem to want to cut today. I'll try to get this as even as possible for either side. Pinch it between and pull it till it looks about even. And this I'm going to do more on top of the hook. Can try to pull some on each side. About like that. And now I'm going to cover all this up. We'll have to see when I get to that point. I don't know if I can get the popper head onto the hook. So it's a pretty tight fit. And that's just one of the few things that I have to have help with is putting it on there. So I might not be able to get it on there to show the eye, how I do the eyes and everything. But we'll see once I get there. Just take the flash, try to cut it to length. You can taper it if you want. That looks pretty good. Next, I'm going to tie in some Palmer chenille. I like doing Palmer chenille between the layers of marabou. I think it makes it look a little neat. Gives it a little more flash. I'll take that and tie it in. About like that. Trim out the excess. Make sure it's locked down real tight. I'm going to advance my thread forward some. I'm not going to do a bunch of wraps, just a few, just to give it a little more flash. About like that. Hands are a little sore today, so it's kind of hard to hold on to this stuff. I'll get that with a few wraps to secure it. And do couple in front. Mainly to get it out of my way, but also help secure it. And we'll trim this out. I'll pull back on that. Make sure it's all laying back how I want it. Sorry, my hand's in the way. I ordered a GoPro. It should be here Sunday. And I just gotta get a bipod and some other things, and then I'll be able to start filming on that. So that's gonna be pretty big for the channel. So the next thing we're going to do is tie in some marabou. If I could grab it. There we go. I'm going to try to tie it in by the tip. And I will show you the trick that I use to help coax the marabou how I want it. Vice is sliding a lot today. Trim out the tip. And we'll advance the thread forward. So I'm going to show you how I do it this first step, and then hopefully I can figure out how to fast forward it so that you don't have to sit there and watch the same thing over and over. Which wouldn't be that many. It's 3 pieces of marabou, but just to try to save time. Alright, so we're going to grab the marabou with the hackle pliers. Like that. Be careful not to break the tip. But if your hands are like mine, I keep a cup of water where I just dip my thumb in it and kind of moisten the feathers just to help pull them out of the way. And that works pretty good for me. I do that on any fly that I'm working with marabou. Once I start wrapping it, then where these feathers are all sticking out, I'll just take a little bit of water and pull them all back. That way I'm not trapping any, and it makes it more manageable. So that's just the easiest way I can work marabou. So if you don't have a whole lot of function in your hands and you're having a problem with it, then you can try that, where you just take a little water, put it on your finger, your thumb, your finger, and just pull those back. Messed up there, which it happens. Well, y'all might have to sit here and watch me do it again. It's always annoying when that happens. There we go. Oh, we'll do it again. Go a little quicker this time because the feathers are damp still. And it might look a little ratchet whenever you do it, but the feather will dry out and it'll be nice and fluffy again. So try to pull all that out of the way. Get my thread, work back. And do at least 3 wraps on it, just to make sure that when you take the hackle pliers off and snip it, that it doesn't come undone. We'll snip that out and wrap back over it a few times, just to keep everything pushed back. cover the butts. And then just to keep the marabou out of the way while I'm doing the next steps, I'll just wet it down and pull it back. That way it doesn't get tangled up in the next material that I'm working with, and it just makes it more manageable. And now here's where we repeat with our Palmer chenille. And like I said, I'm going to try to fast forward this step so I might not talk as much, if I can figure it out. Being a little stubborn. Alright, so with our last feather in, get this tied off. Looks like a mess right now, but go and pick it out. Try to get everything looking better. It looks rough right now, but once it dries, then it'll be right back to being real fluffy. And then once it's wet, you'll see that flash in between the marabou that we put in. You'll see that come through. So it makes it a little flashier. I'm going to take my popper head. I know about where it's going to sit. So about right there, if you can see that. It's going to sit about right there. Maybe up a little further. So I'll do a little more of this flash, and then I'm going to tie in a red piece of marabou on the bottom. It's kind of like bleeding gills or blood, anything like that. You can tie these in any color that you would want. It's always fun to fish a big popper. You could probably try this one offshore as well. So get that tied in. And clean it up some. I'm going to try my best to get this head on if I can. I know the video is already kind of long. But doing the eyes, it's just like doing any other eye. You put down some super glue, put your eye in the socket, and I think you can buy the special eyes for the fish, the living fish eyes. I just use regular old hologram eyes, but you put down some super glue, get your eye seated, and then I go back over the top with some Solar Res thick, and then I'll coat over the eye, and then I'll cure it. That way the eye is more protected and it's not just going to pop out after a few fish. So I'll just do a couple wraps of this, because this is about the back of where the head's going to be. And as you can tell, the marabou drying out, it starts getting in the way. If you have to, wet your finger again and move it back just to whatever makes it easier for you to work with. Get that locked in. And we'll go ahead and clip that and get it out of the way. Pull it back the best you can. Get it all wrapped in. Locked down. And you could also, in between doing the marabou and the flash, you could lay down super glue, or you could super glue your tie off point, make it more durable. For time, I try to skip it, because I don't want my videos to be too long, and this one's already getting on the long side. Alright, with that, got a piece of red marabou here that I've already prepped. I've cut the tip of it off. So I'm gonna try to get that placed on there. With a couple wraps, and then grab my trusty forceps. Try to keep it on top. Do a little tighter of a wrap, keep it from pulling out. And I did too much. That's alright, I'll just back off a few wraps. And what you can do too is just dip the feather in the water. I do that with some of the flies I tie with marabou. I dip it in water and then I just run it through my fingers. So that makes it a lot easier to tie in. Want to go about right there. Lock that down. I'm going to try to pull this over to where it's straight. About right there. And now I can lock it down. Then cut this out. Not worried about the back here being messy, 'cause you're not going to see it once you get the popper head on. And then just clean this up. And it gives the glue a little more to grab onto once you do the head. I'm just going to check one more time. Yeah, should be good. If you have a large whip finish tool, comes in handy because you got a lot of hook out still. So grab my large whip finisher tool. Get a good whip finish on there. And remove the thread. Let's see if I can grab this and push it on. There we go. So I'm not gonna glue it yet or anything. Just try to get it set to how I want. Like I said, these hooks I think are the wrong size for these heads because you have some that hangs out. But that's how it'll look when it's done. I guess I could have done another feather on the bottom, but that'll be alright. Then for the eyes, like I said, you just put down some super glue, put your eye in, and then go over it with some thick resin. But that's it. The big game popper. A lot of flash, a lot of movement. Give it a try out. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. It's going to help out. Give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what other kind of flies you'd like to see. I know the videos are long, just bear with me. And once I get a GoPro, then I'm going to figure out some editing situations. But until next time, y'all have a good one, and thanks for watching.